Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, y'all, so we're here with our weekly golden nugget. That jingling song you hear in the background is my dog, who has, of course, decided right now is the perfect time to scratch herself and jingle her collar. So it is the 28th of March, and we're here to give you your weekly golden nugget through Full Awakening. I'm Riza. For those of you who don't know me, I'm sure all of you do. Dog scratching. This is the beauty of live video. I love live video because there are no retakes, there's no edits. This is just, it is what it is. And in honor of it is what it is, I am wearing my very favorite new item of clothing, which is a bathrobe, home robe. I don't even know what you call these things. I have been coveting having a robe to wear around my house for months through this cold ass Midwestern winter. We just relocated back to the Chicago area after living in Portland, Oregon. My partner for their entire life and myself for the last 13 years. And although Portland does get cold in the winter, this has been a new level of cold. And I've been wanting a cozy little robe, and what's called it a vest. It's not a vest, a cozy robe to put on around the house. And I'm very frugal when it comes to buying stuff for myself. I have a really hard time with it. It's part of my upbringing. So my husband, my partner, decided to buy one for me. So here I am in my cotton flannel purple robe, and this is real, folks. This is, I have not taken it off all day. And I wanted to, you know, this week we're talking about the waking dream, and it's a really intense reading that I received and that I'm going to deliver to you in a really nice spread of cards. I actually pulled 3 cards. I will taunt you with them, but of course they'll probably pick a still showing you all of them. There are 3 cards. I chose to use my Italian Triple Goddess deck today. That's what I was called to, and the images are so beautiful, and so I really look forward to sharing that with you. But part of the theme for this week has to do with getting real with each other. We live in an era of social media. A lot of us, and I'm very thankful for it, are able to connect by virtue of having social media from far distances. And I have many, many close friendships in places that are far away, and I honor that social media does this. But also it allows us to put our best foot forward, right? And when we're suffering or having a hard time, we don't necessarily know how to show that part of ourselves, right? And this week for me has been personally very challenging. I've gone through a lot of emotional ups and downs and a lot of waves, and I had to really sit with that and was able to reach out to friends and let them know that I needed some energetic or emotional support, and that's fine. But I feel like, you know, the reading today shows this continual message that I often sort of cycle through when I'm in a really low or challenging place emotionally, to think that this is a very human experience that I'm having. The biggest lie about suffering, the biggest lie about when we're in a dark place, is that we feel very alone. And for someone, you know, I've never been diagnosed as having clinical depression, but I have had depressive episodes throughout my life, and I have many people in my life who are clinically depressed and have been on medication or have had to seek help for that. And I think that I've had enough depression to know that one of the lies about depression is that you feel very alone. You are not able to see the way that your life and your circumstances relate to the lives and circumstances of others. And that isolation and that feeling of I'm always going to be here, there's no way out, can be very hard and can perpetuate this feeling. So I made a post earlier in the week that's been on Instagram and Facebook, and a lot of people have commented about it. So I want to touch on that for a second before I go into the reading. And basically the gist of the post was, whatever you're feeling when your heart is hurting and you're wanting to fold over your heart, to feel that, to allow the emotions to flow. Right? And not only that, not only allowing the emotions to flow through you and allowing yourself to actually feel what you're feeling instead of trying to numb it out or trying to force a sense of relief upon those emotions, but also to think about the thought forms, to recognize the thought forms and be mindful of them that are causing those emotions to be drawn to you and through you, right? Or that are being triggered by the emotions themselves. those thought forms are really important for us to notice, right? Thought form is energy. It's kind of original energy. It's what calls form to us. So to not acknowledge those thought forms is to allow them to become shadow, to allow them to be behind us, to allow them to have way more power over our circumstance than they deserve. And the important thing that I found this week through my underwater journeys, or the underside of the wave, as I like to call it, is that, those thought forms don't need to be true to have sway over our experience. And so to be able to hear the thought forms and acknowledge them and loosen our grip around them without grabbing them and saying, yes, this is truth. This is clearly truth, right? And I think sometimes the feelings that we have of self-loathing or self-deprecation or lowered self-worth that we have because of the feelings and because of the thought forms, sometimes we actually like to self-harm with those. So I feel like, for instance, I had a really hard day and then I had a really good sleep, a really good solid sleep, and rest is going to come in as part of the recommendation here. But I had a really good sleep and I woke up and I felt better. But I found myself just a little bit grasping towards what were those thoughts I was having when I was feeling really low? What emotional value did they elicit within me? And I think that it would become easy to become attached to that feeling of harm, of self-depreciation from those thoughts. And I think that often that's how we get looped into a cycle of depression. So I want to put that out there. We all experience feelings. It's okay to feel shitty sometimes. It's okay to let people know you're feeling shitty sometimes. It's okay to do a live video on Facebook in your bathrobe. At least I am. So let's just say that. Today is spring break for my kids, and my husband took the kids out of town for 3 days, and I spent from 10 o'clock when they left until about 5 p.m. sleeping, just plain old sleeping. I have a little bit of an excuse because I am pregnant, about 22 weeks, 23 weeks pregnant. So I give myself that excuse, but also it's just been a really tough week. And so sleep is golden, and I feel really happy that I gave myself that gift. All right. The waking dream. So we've titled our golden nugget a waking dream, and I'm going to read to you this rather long but pretty intense and beautiful reading. When I do a reading, I meet with the Council of 17, which is my primary light council. I open up an activated space. If you guys want to know more about that, you can always check out the website, fullawakening.net. You can work with me personally. I have a great inner circle that meets once a month, and we practice opening up in a ceremonial space. So you learn those skills, and we also do a Q&A with the council. There's lots of ways to work with me, and I'll go into that a little bit perhaps later. But basically just to give you an outline. So I receive intuition. It's usually a pantomime that's silent, and that gets translated into emotion, meaning, form, and I put it down on paper, and it becomes a piece of writing. So poetry has been always one of my favorite forms of expression, creative expression. And so I find that that has been one of the ways in which I anchor the insight that comes in. All right, here it goes. Cutting through heart muscle, slicing fiber after fiber, trying to emerge, trying to birth ourselves clear through to the other side. The pain you feel, the exhaustion, the heartbreak is real, as one level of emergence brings you into intense contact with the next. Wall, no escape in sight, doubled over and contemplating, submitting to the impossible nature of this mission. And yet, there is no exit, no escape, nowhere to run, no truth to be buried that would relieve this pain. The truth is, you are not alone. I am not alone. We are in this together. Each in our isolated slip of reality, macheting our way through, trying to reach center, trying to find the space where we will finally be able to see each other clearly. There is no one on this planet at this moment who can escape the heart-wrenching process of emergence that we are facing. The only question is, how awake are you to the dream that you are living? There is no judgment in the answer. We are walking this path together. And if we can shed a little light, show a little heart, get down on the ground with our feelings, then that adds a little bit of courage, a little bit of comfort, a little bit of fuel to our wheel. And we thank you. Yes, so that's our reading. And I'm gonna actually write this poem out and I'll put it in the comments probably for this video, and I'm also gonna put it on Instagram. I was really touched by how visceral the imagery was and the journey that Spirit took me through to come up with this, this download. It literally felt like having a machete and just whacking your way through like these thick, thick walls, these membranes and these muscles, and trying to birth ourselves onto the other side and coming through to the other side and feeling that relief of the emergence, and then being faced with another fucking wall. And just the exhaustion of that process of continuing to cut our ways through to birthing and then finding ourselves in front of another wall. And that, you know, I think earlier in our evolution as a collective, earlier even I can say in my own life's experience, you know, I started this process of emergence about 29 years ago, really. And the gaps of time between these episodes of emergence were pretty large in the beginning. We're like years at a time between moments of awakening, moments of emergence. And then I would get this huge gap of sort of drifting back into the collective dream, right? And mucking my way through life and trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do in life, and, you know, what I felt and why I felt the way I did and all these kind of things, right? And what my beliefs were, what my values were. That's this process of individuating as a human being, you know. And I started my awakening process when I was 10. So I had lots of years that, you know, had to do with real human process of individuating and becoming a human. But I feel like, you know, in the last 10 years, these episodes of emergence have been becoming more rapid, more rapid, more rapid. It's sort of the contraction process for anyone who's ever given birth, you know, and it's certainly birth goes differently for all people. But, you know, generally speaking, you have these practice contractions for a while. They call them Braxton Hicks, where the uterus practices being really contracted, right? And then those contractions become more regular. And then you're in active labor. At some point when they fit a certain rhythm, you're like, okay, it's on. Active labor has started. And all of these secondary processes start to happen in the body. And then those contractions get longer and more intense and closer together and closer together and closer together until you're actually birthing the baby. And I know with my first birth, and this was slightly unusual, I mean, I was birthing for 3 days, and by the time I was actually in the pushing stage, I was having 7-minute contractions with just 30 seconds of reprieve between, and I was pushing through the entire thing. And I feel like that's where we are right now, a little bit, in our collective emergence. We're in this place where there's just so much contraction and so much pushing and so much macheting our way through that muscle fiber, so much of trying to get through, and it's exhausting. And the lie that we might perceive is that we're kind of alone. We're kind of alone together. And it's true in some ways, right? We can have these flourishing communities online of people who are going through approximately the same thing. And we can still feel very alone, because pretty much we just want to show the pretty stuff, right? Pretty much we just want to show the stuff that makes us feel good about who we are, and we want people to affirm that we're good and that we're doing the right thing. But the truth is that there's a lot of people who are really struggling right now. And this is something that we need to be aware of, you know, that as we awaken to this truth that like the life that we're living or the path that we've been on is not the most optimal path for our self-growth and for our self-expression, and we exit that path into something that is more meaningful, that is more in alignment with our soul purpose, that doesn't mean that it's like instantly easy, right? It doesn't mean it's instantly viable as a job. It doesn't mean that it's just smooth sailing. Often it means you're inviting in more and more and more levels of change and more levels of revelation. And that can be extremely, extremely hard. So I love this image that I got. So of being in this tight, confined space and macheting our way through and rebirthing ourselves into this next arena, and then being confronted again with another wall, those contractions getting tighter and tighter and closer together, still feel very alone. And Spirit's like, okay, zoom out on this picture though. Like, we don't have to feel so alone, because if you look, all the way around this huge circle that is humanity are people macheting their way through in the same situation. They may feel very different about what the imagery is or what they're doing, but the action is the same. We're all in this very intense process of emerging. And I said, okay, well, these are the leaders, right? These are us have decided to be in the front lines of awakening, to be in the front lines of emergence. What about everybody else on this planet? Because I know a lot of people who are like, this is not their reality. This is not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about just their paycheck and the small little pleasures in life, and whether their kids are going to be able to, whether they're going to be able to afford to send their kids to college, and things that, are true and mundane and actual literal life, right? This is actual life that we're living. And I know a lot of people who are good people who are struggling through those three-dimensional aspects of life. So what about those people? And Spirit's like, oh, those people are doing it too. They're doing it too. They just might not know it, right? So I've had people to say to me that they don't dream, right? Have you ever heard someone say that? Maybe you said that. I don't dream. I just sleep, and then I wake up, and then I go about my day. And for me, I'm like, oh man, I dream all night long. I dream from the moment I close my eyes, I am dreaming. For me, meditation is a form of dreaming. Sleep is like not always the most restful thing. I am journeying during sleep time, and that's how I function. But what I learned is that we all dream. And whether or not we remember our dreams depends on how deeply we're asleep when we're dreaming. And I know for myself, and I've witnessed this in my kids, so it's interesting they inherited this, but I sleep with my eyes open a lot of the time. And I am still functioning in some realms in my outside physical life while I'm in dream time. So I'm really walking and having this like lucid dreaming experience, and therefore I remember a lot of my dreams. And so that was the example that Spirit gave of like, okay, there's a lot of people, everybody, there's no way, we're all connected, we're all in a web as we move through this process of emergence, and we're all moving towards the center of the wheel. We're all trying to get to this central point so that we can see each other, so that we can be present together, really in the center of truth, right? There's no aspect of humanity that's not being pulled into that same process. It's just a matter of whether they're dreaming awake or dreaming asleep, right? So the people that are doing it that don't necessarily know they're doing it, they're still having all the feelings, right? They're still having all the struggle. They're still having the experience on a visceral level, but they might not know why they're having that experience, right? And so like I was saying before, sometimes we're having feelings and thought forms come in to explain those feelings, or those feelings can trigger certain thought forms. And those thought forms can be unique to you and the baggage you're carrying and the healing that you're trying to enact in your own life and for your family, right? So I want to put that out there. We're all doing this. Every single one of us is doing this. This is the image that I received from Spirit. So it feels true to me. I believe it enough to tell you that we're all going through this process. It just depends on how present we are, how awake we are while we're living that dream that we're all experiencing. And again, I love this image. I get it a lot. We're all in this great web of human consciousness together. And we can have these forerunners or these people in the front lines that are running, but everyone's getting pulled along the same trajectory. So we're in it together. All right, 3 cards. 3 cards. Hello, Rachel. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to wave to you. I love having company while I do this. I see a lot of people watch, but they watch afterwards. So it's always really fun to have someone watching live. That reminds me that we're doing this live. All right, so today we pulled out 3 cards. We actually pulled out 4. So the first one popped out of the deck, and this is one I get all the time. And it's the Major Arcana number 14, and it's Temperance. I love it. I love this image. Let's see if we can get a glare-free version of it. And basically this is about alchemy and about change. So taking these raw ingredients of these different elementals and kind of creating something new, and the magic of the moon. And yeah, it's a great card. I have lots to contemplate about this card always. But then I got these other 3 and I said, I think that these other 3 are actually together in this reading. And so I'm going to present them together. And there's 2 of them here. Well, one of them here that I've never even seen before, because the way I work with tarot cards is, and I've always done this since my first tarot deck when I was 16, is I don't go through the entire deck. I only I see the cards as I see them when I pull them. And often, you know, it's like the same 10 that I always pull. But then every now and then one surprises me. And I like the surprise where I go, ooh, this is something new. This is something different. I've never seen this card before. And so that was the first card that pulled out, was the Queen of Cups. And I have never pulled her in this deck, in this particular deck before. I have pulled the Queen of Cups in a different deck that I often use. This is just a really interesting card. It's very dark in a sense, like it's, you know, it's dark outside, and that's perfect. It's actually dark outside here right now. She's got this giant cup, right? So the cups is the water sign, right? It's the water element, and it stands for emotion and emotional intuition and understanding, emotional literacy, let's say. And the queen is obviously, you know, the top of that. The queen and the king in the minor arcana, you know, the king is more of the action aspect, and the queen is the mastery of the feeling aspect. So they're both mastery points, or the highest mastery point, right? If we were to hierarchy it that way. The queen is the highest mastery point as far as the feeling of water. And I'm feeling called to like put this one up here too. These kind of did come in together. God, this glare is just terrible. But I love that they relate to each other, and the water is such a strong, the water and the moon are such a strong aspect in the alchemy card and the temperance. Okay. All right. So we've got the Queen of Cups, and this stands for daring to honor our intuition. So it's a card that has a lot to do with divination and just honoring our intuition. Yeah. I love, she's got like the crystal ball in front of her, and she seems like she's speaking, I don't know, or singing an incantation. It's a very magical card. The queen, you know, as far as the queen being the mastery point of feeling, I think that one of the things that comes up to me to mention is that, you know, I talk about organ, right? Especially this area of the body, the solar plexus, the front of the body is like, this is immediately what's happening right now. Like we are getting constant waves of energy moving to and through our solar plexus and our belly area, right? Our gut instincts. And while we honor our eyes the most and our ability to see, we honor our ability to hear next. We have our ability to smell, taste, touch, right? But we don't often talk about our ability to feel. And in fact, this is part of the rising of the divine feminine, right? The rising of the divine feminine is honoring that, which is not just the power of our cognitive abilities, our power to know and our power to act in these more masculine aspects. The divine feminine is really about our power to feel our emotions, to feel our body, to honor those feelings, to honor our wild instincts. You know, I often mention my love of the book Women Who Run with Wolves, which is by Clarice Pinkola Estes, and it's all about rewilding the divine feminine within us. And she takes like traditional fairy tales from different parts of the world, and she deconstructs it from a feminist, like rewilding perspective. It's a beautiful book. I recommend for everyone. But this is where we are right now. We're heavily in this place of honoring the divine feminine. So here's our divine feminine, our master of knowing and intuiting. The next card that I pulled was the Six of Swords. And the swords is the air element, it's ideas, it's thought forms. It's interesting because we were just talking about this idea of thought forms and how we ignore, acknowledge, or over truthify our thought forms, see them as truth, right? There's a spectrum. So we want to be always in the middle of the spectrum. We want to ride that Goldilocks zone of being able to be aware and honor, but not over truthify, which is not a word, but it is now, our thought forms. So here we are in the thought form realm, and actually both of these second two cards are of the sword variety. So here's swords. We've got the Six of Swords. Let's see if we can get a good image that is glare-free for you guys. And it's this has always been, hi Gianna, this has always been a really interesting card to me, because there's this dark adult figure with this like child, the glare. Yay, friends. It's nice that you're joining. Thank you. So it's this, shrouded sort of mysterious adult figure in this boat with this child, and the boat is really facing out of the cave, but I always feel like because they're facing into the cave, it seems like they're coming in. I don't know, it's not clear. The idea of this card though is to go out and explore new lands. It's a travel card. But it's not just travel physically, it's about traveling mentally, right? It's about letting go of the ideas that we've had in the past and allowing new ideas to emerge and to come through. And so I think that this is really appropriate for our reading. And you guys can go back and watch that part. But basically the reading talked about, the strain that we go through in the process of emergence, and that we can, we have all these feelings that come up, and the exhaustion and the heartbreak, but that it's the thought forms that come up in the wake of that can really perpetuate the depression or to perpetuate the exhaustion, and that it's okay to acknowledge those thought forms, but it's also okay to not truthify them or to not take them as wisdom, but as just what's present at the time. So I like this card a lot. It says, hear those thoughts and release those thoughts and find new thoughts, travel beyond. It's kind of a learning card in that way. Let's go out and seek new learning, which is a great place to be. Curiosity is a great place to be. So this is the last card, and this is my favorite because it pertains to my life and why I'm wearing a bathrobe for our reading today, because I've been doing a lot of sleeping today since my family went out of town for the weekend for spring break, and I immediately went to bed and and didn't wake up until about 5 o'clock. And then I've been cooking yummy food that I've been craving for the last little while, and I'm gonna eat it happily, heartily after we get off this call or this video. But anyway, so the Four of Swords is this card, which is one of my favorites. I pulled this card a lot. Let's see if I can figure out how to show it to you guys without tipping it the wrong way. Okay. So it's a woman sitting there. I think she has like a chess table with one side laid out next to her. She's got the Four Swords behind her. She's got this sort of yoni that she's making with her hands, this mudra of the birth canal, I think, which relates to our previous sort of reading around the contractions, the quickening contractions and the birthing pains we're going through right now. But she's in meditation. She's in quietude. And so this card's really about resting. And this was a conversation I was having with my counsel earlier as I was emotionally struggling a little bit with my extreme desire to rest and to not do anything, even though this is one of my usual work days. I wanted to just lay there and just sleep. And Spirit came in very strongly and they said, just rest. Just open up your body, melt into the bed, and just let it all go. Just rest. And in that rest, comes up this very quiet, very true ability to contemplate. It is such a sweet and effective way to meditate, in a sense, when you're not riding the racing horse of thoughts, but you're just deeply, deeply resting, and you're just opening yourself up to guidance. You're opening yourself up to how you've been feeling. You're opening yourself up to feeling nourished and doing whatever you can to nourish yourself. So it's no wonder that I woke up and I said, I know exactly what my body's craving for food. I am going to make it, and I'm going to listen to my favorite podcast that has pretty much nothing to do with the kind of work I do, although it is just a great podcast and talking about conversations. I've been listening to Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, because I think he's hilarious. And I love the way that he does his interviews. It's similar to our Stories of Awakening in that it really is a conversation. It's not a one-sided interview. And he allows himself to be just as vulnerable as he asks his guests to be. And I honor that. That's the way that I facilitate. That's the way that I like to hold a conversation. Is I never shy away from being vulnerable with my own process and my own self. Again, bathrobe. So yes, speaking of Stories of Awakening, we have this conversation series that gets released on the 15th of each month. Gianna, who's on this call and is watching, was our person this last month on the 15th. So you should check out the website. I've now put on fullawakening.net, I've put a Stories of Awakening button in the header, which I've cleaned up the header so it doesn't look crazy, but there is its own button for Stories of Awakening, so you can get directly to that series. It's a really fun series. The videos are an hour long, and it's a conversation that goes pretty deep, I'm finding, with people, to really go into this, my personal fascination, which is like, how did you get on your path? How did you find yourself where you are now? And I think paths of passion for whatever your field is. I mean, this is why Chef's Table on Netflix, I think, is an excellent series, not only because the cinematography and the music is gorgeous, but it simply follows one chef. And again, I don't desire to be a chef professionally, but watching a person find their path of passion is infinitely interesting to me. And I think it is to most people, right? Because that in some ways is an understanding of freedom, when we can find our path of passion and we can follow it. And so interviewing people who are healers and change makers and transformational leaders and artists and saying, how on earth did you go from where you were to where you are and where you're headed and what's happened to you along the way? It just makes for a beautiful conversation every time. So that series is available to you. It's a free video series. It's a labor of love. That's the word I'm looking through. It's a passion project for me, something I've been thinking about for a long time. And, those stories that I've sought out from other people have been a huge part of my own process. So I wanted to bring that to you guys. The other thing I want to talk about is next month, we are doing a full day ceremony in Santa Monica, actually Marina Del Rey, which is a little bit south of Santa Monica, if I know my Southern California geography. And a little friend that is going to be part of the ceremony wanted to come out here, and she's sitting on my little makeshift altar. And so I have these adorable little, look at that, these little nature spirits. And those little nature spirits made by Meg Lorio, who is one of our team members' mothers. Our team member, Beth Lorio, who does a lot of our video editing and music editing and putting together our meditations, editing that together with Joshua Stoddard's music. She is an artist herself in many, many ways, and also a healer. And her mother and father are both clay artists. Her dad does more traditional works like this burn bowl that I use, and these will also be part of what will be received by the participants of our all-day ceremony. This is what I use to burn sage and Palo Santo in. And we have these handmade, amazing little burn bowls that are going to come with our foundations package that will be received by every participant. But I also thought, oh my goodness, Meg sent me these amazing little nature spirits, and I've been using them on my own altar for a while, but she sent me a whole package of them, of 10 of them, and they're all super different. My youngest child actually took one, and he has it on layaway. He has it in his room, and he's doing special chores to pay for it. Because yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so we've got a bunch of these nature spirits. One of the things we're going to be doing as part of our ceremony, I've packed in basically an entire 3-day retreat worth of ceremony and teaching and experiences within a 1-day period of time. And that's mostly because I wanted to make it super accessible time-wise for people. I know that people have jobs and they have families and they have obligations. And so I'm packing in this crazy 11-hour session where you'll still have time. We'll have time to eat, and we'll have time, and I'm going to cater the food, and so it's going to be delicious, and people will have time to go out to the beach and go on walks by themselves and have that ebb and flow of together time and alone time. So these little guys, I love to use them for like a bud vase. So sometimes I put like a little flower blossom in them, but also so they've got these holes that you can fill with water. The ones you guys will be receiving have a peacock feather. So most of the peacock feathers are green, but this one is one that I found from a local peacock at our local zoo, and it's black and white. So I've got that one in mine, but you guys will have little green ones. And then inside, I'm bringing back an old ceremony I used to do that was part of the Hope Seed Project. And the Hope Seed Project still has a lot of energy behind it. And I wanted to start wrapping that into Full Awakening more, because it is really, they kind of are birthed from the same tree, if you will. So inside is this little Herkimer diamond. Look at that little baby. And this is one of my special little friends. And I have been using Herkimer diamonds in sacred work for about 13 years, I think. I was doing a really important ceremony for my primary teacher, Allison Bradley, up in New York State in the Catskills. And I was bearing a crystal for her and just doing this really awesome ceremony that she gave me to do. And I looked down on the ground, and my old, this has happened for a while, but spirit, when they're giving me something, it's like there's a little flash of light, like a little firework. And I looked down, I saw this little flash of light. I was on the path of this campground that we were staying at. And there was this perfect little cut piece of what looked like broken glass, right? Spirit's like, oh, pick it up. I went, oh, that's like a piece of broken glass. I don't want that. And they're like, pick it up. I was like, all right. So I leaned down and picked it up, and I was like, no way. It's like this perfect little crystal. And immediately Spirit said, put it in your mouth under your tongue. And I was like, can I wash it first? So I washed it in the sink, put it down under my tongue, and I wore it for the ceremony. And then I continued to wear it for a long time. And since then, I've learned a lot about Herkimer diamonds. But this is what we use for the Hope Seed Project. These are our hope seeds. And basically the idea is that we wear it under our tongue because there's that huge vessel there that connects directly to the heart. And we draw in our heart's mission, our heart's purpose. So we connect with the part of ourselves, the divine part of ourselves that had a plan for us, right? That had a mission for us. We connect to that mission, and we bring it into our heart, and we bring it into this crystal. And when we feel called to, we plant this crystal in the ground, and then there's a specific part of the earth that's holding our mission. So it's a gift to us to be able to give to the earth this commitment of, I am here and I am willing to live my life for the purpose of this mission. It's kind of the ceremony itself is a little bit, it's part meditation, part ceremony, but also kind of like a wedding ceremony to yourself. So I've loved doing that myself. I love guiding others in it. There are people that have been doing this ceremony all over the world and guiding it with their own communities. And we hope at some point to have like a map that shows all the places that hope seeds have been buried and that hope seed ceremonies have happened. We also have larger hope seeds that are also Herkimers that are related to connecting the spirit of a location with its soul purpose. So those are also acts of service, and I might be bringing some of those too. Anyway, so yes, one of the reasons that the cost is what it is for this retreat, it's $450, is because I'm flying out to this location and I'm bringing a ton of art and sacred items to give you guys as part of the ceremony. And also I'll be buying art supplies. And so there's a certain amount of cost that I'm putting down for the ceremony itself, and I'll be providing food. I've put together 2 different payment plans, so you can pay all in one lump sum, or you can pay a smaller amount over 3 months, and there's no penalty for that. It's the same amount. So I'm hoping to make it accessible. And that's a big goal of mine in general. And we're going to be reaching out to different funders to try to create like a scholarship fund so that people can work with me and work with Full Awakening regardless of where they are financially. Because as we said before, as people depart their path and go, the set path to go off the beaten track, to go into their own pathway of truth, sometimes we're left in financially precarious positions, and that's not something to be ashamed of. It's just the reality. But I still think we should have all the access that we need to have to the learning and to the communities and to the experiences that we need to fuel our process. So that's a passion of mine. We're going to figure out how to do that. Lastly, yeah, everyone on this call so far, you guys are all in the inner circle, but I'll say to viewers who watch this afterwards, Riz's Inner Circle is a great way to work with me for a really affordable price. So speaking of accessibility, it's $17 a month. We do a live Q&A call and a ceremony online every month on the 3rd Saturday in the morning. And then we also have a meditation archive that finally got up and running. I have tackled my fears of technology, and I've created an archive that will continue to grow that has a bunch of MP3 meditations that you can listen to on the website, but also that you can download. And that's available for anybody. It's $111 if you're buying it as a standalone self-study course. And if you join the Inner Circle, it's given to you for free. So that's all I have to say about that. Look, I advertised for myself and I made the longest video in creation. So anyway, I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, a wonderful month. And always, 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 I love to end this with a little bit of gratitude. Thank you so much for being who you are and bringing what you bring to the world, to your community, to your family, and most of all, to your own tender, divine heart. Thank you guys. Much love.